Hello everyone, Negro VMX here, and welcome to a Cooking with VMX. And today, we're gonna make brown butter. I'm gonna teach you how to make brown butter. Now, I've done a few cooking videos in the past, or talked on Discord about cooking, or showed off food pictures on Discord, where I said, hey, this is what I made, and people say, oh, what's in it? And sometimes I use brown butter. And there's been some interest in a brown butter, not really a recipe, more of a tutorial, because there's only really one ingredient, and that's butter, although we're going to be adding some herbs as well. So all you need is your pan, your butter. We got lots of butter there. Some of it's a little frozen, but we're going to have to deal with that. And we got some herbs. I got some fresh parsley here, and I got some dill. So we're going to do parsley and dill brown butter. I'm also going to need a bowl to pour the butter into, because after it's done being browned, it's going in the fridge to harden. So I guess I could use this one. There's this bowl here. So really, like I said, it's not really a recipe. It's more of a tutorial. It's very easy to make in the sense that there's only one thing that you need, which is butter, or herbs if you want to add it. But on the other hand, it's quite technical, and you have to get it just right. The whole thing about brown butter is that it's just almost burnt butter. By the way, Gibbs wants to say hi. Gibbs. Hi. Good boy. All right. So it's almost burnt, but not quite. If you burn the butter, then you've ruined it, basically. And nobody wants burned butter, but you want brown butter. And it's going to have like this nutty, aromatic feel to it. So we're going to turn the heat on to medium, because the first step is to get the butter melted. So because some of this is a little frozen and it's a lot of butter, it's going to take a little while. I'm going to pause the video here, and we'll come back when it's nearly melted. We're back, and it's mostly melted. So yeah, because it's mostly melted, what I'm doing here is I'm breaking up the remaining solids to increase the surface area. The more it's broken up, the more of the butter is surface, and therefore the more of it is exposed to the heating element, the pan, and therefore it melts faster. So once you have it either completely melted or more or less melted, which it's at this point more or less melted, we're going to lower the heat from medium down to low. Right about there is good. And then this is the technique part. We're going to take our pan and we're going to start swirling it. Just enough that it's constantly swirling, but not so much that it's going to come out of the pan. And you got to make sure that your pan is in constant contact with the heat. You can't lift it up. If you lift it up, it's going to cook unevenly. And then really, it's just a matter of waiting for that magic moment when it becomes brown butter. And as you see now, you see the edges are kind of like turning white, and it's leaving sediment on the sides of the pan. The reason that it's doing that is because this is actually salted butter. So the salty part kind of separates from the not so salty, or the milk fats, you know. It might look a little different if you're using unsalted butter. And that noise you're hearing is Gibbs taking a drink of water. So don't worry about that. And you're going to start to see almost like solids forming in the center of it. You're going to see like these clumps. It's not happening yet, but it's going to happen soon. And that's a sign of the process. You want to do this very slowly, and I don't mean swirling it slowly, although you kind of want to do that. It's going to start to look like clouds almost, see? But cooking it slowly, which is why I got it on a low heat. I'm actually going to lower the heat a little bit more, and we're going to continue our swirl. Now, if you want to, you could use a spatula to sort of clean up the sides, but it's not really super necessary. The only thing you want to do is that if you're going to use it right away to make a sauce, that's fine. But if you're going to harden it, what you want to do is make sure that you mix it up a little bit before you harden it in the fridge. That way you don't have like a salty layer and like a non-salty layer. It's the first time I ever made brown butter, I had that issue where there was like 2 layers of it. You might still get like layers, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. So the magic moment, which we're waiting for, and it takes longer the more butter you use. This is quite a bit of butter, so it might take a little while. But the magic moment is where it's going to foam up. And that's when you know you're at that moment where it's brown butter. And that's when we're going to add the herbs. If you add the herbs early, I find that the herbs burn, really. And they settle down too much. You want them to infuse directly into the butter. So fresh herbs, preferable to dried. I call that fresh parsley, even though it is kind of dried, meaning that it's parsley that we grew in the garden. It was parsley that was grown in the garden and then dried out in the oven. So, I mean, it wasn't store-bought parsley. Not that there's anything wrong with store-bought parsley. But keep in mind, when you're adding dried herbs to any kind of liquid, or it's very different than when you're adding fresh herbs, because they incorporate completely differently. So I'd say we're about halfway there, maybe. You got to make sure you keep that swirl going. And when it starts bubbling a lot, it's an indication that you're almost there. I lowered the heat just a tad more. We're at pretty much the minimum amount of heat possible here. We're going to get a little closer so you guys can see the, well, I say see the magic, but it's really more like science. Okay, we're bubbling a lot. Another reason that you swirl it, you see how it's starting to all become one thing now again? Instead of being white on the outside and clear in the middle, you're starting to see it become a little more homogeneous because we're mixing it. But also at the same time, another thing that we're doing is we're making sure that it all cooks at the same speed. Because even butter in a pan, there's some butter that's touching the pan and there's some butter that's above that. So they're not cooking exactly the same. That's why you move things around. All right, we're almost there. You can also tell by the smell. Oh, I shouldn't have taken it off. I was just smelling to see how close we were. We're very close. It's going to foam up, and that's when you know it's done. You can actually see the color of it has kind of already changed. It's not quite brown, but it's darker yellow than it was. I probably shouldn't have lifted it up. That probably slowed me down quite a bit, but hey, the video is only 8 minutes long. My first cooking video was over an hour. I think it was an hour. It was over an hour, or it was just under an hour. It was somewhere when I did the chicken soup video. It was chicken soup made into chicken soup curry. So it's kind of like showing, here's how you make chicken soup, and here's how you convert chicken soup into a chicken soup curry. Okay, now, like I said, the magic moment is when it foams. Don't mistake the bubbles for foam. That's just bubbles. You'll know when it's that moment when it becomes foam. So brown butter is great for like to put on a steak. It's good to mix in with mashed potatoes. It's good with pasta. The one thing that I use it for the most is to make sauces out of. Like what I'll do is I'll make a dark roux, which is where you take brown butter and flour, you mix that together, and then I'll make like a dark bechamel. You add milk into that, and then whatever else you want. Like a really good sauce that I made for brown butter gnocchi with bacon was I did a dark roux, which is brown butter and flour, got that all mixed up, added milk to it to make it into like a dark bechamel, and then I added like herbs and spices, and what else did I add to that? Well, it really wasn't that complicated. It was herbs and spices. It was like parsley and red pepper and all that, and then chopped up bacon, and that went over the gnocchi, and it was really good. I have an itch on my head. I have to take care of that. All right. If you lose the swirling for a second, it's not that big of a deal. What I really shouldn't have done was lift the pan up at any point. Okay. Now you can see when it's kind of become where it's like almost completely. And you could do this faster at a higher heat. I just prefer to go slower because, like I said, it's very technical. And if you miss the moment, you've ruined it. You've ruined a whole lot of butter. If you do it too early, it's not brown butter. And if you do it too late, you have burned butter. But you know you're getting close when the bubbles have started to really just cover the entire top portion. What you really want is where the entire thing is almost all bubble. And because I know we're getting close, I'm sort of slowing down my swirling a bit. I'm not swirling as much. You could also do it like this, where you do it like a wave, but I don't prefer that. I'm just showing you that's another technique you can do, but I think swirling is better. And by the way, when you're swirling, the trick to swirling without spilling it is to start out small and then go big. If you start swirling like this much right away, it's bad. But if you, oh, look at that, it's foamed up. So this is where we're gonna take it off the heat. So when it's foamed up like that, you might want to go a little bit longer because it's a lot of butter. See, it kind of creates like a dome of foam. We're gonna move that off. That's brown butter. Let's get that out of there. Oh, it smells like brown butter. It's almost like a nutty, almost like a macadamia nut kind of feel to it. Trying to open up my herbs with the left hand. It's not as easy as you'd think. You know what? I think we need to switch here. Do it with the right hand. Okay, so I'm going to add my dill, which it's just regular store-bought dill. This didn't come out of a garden or anything. You don't need a lot. Maybe a little more than that. And then the parsley, we'll do that with the left hand. I should have the bag open though. There we go. Getting that parsley. And less is more. You don't need a lot of herbs. Just like that amount is good, really. That's actually more than I normally add, but we're just going to mix that up. You want to make sure that it's all mixed and homogeneous. Because we're going to take the parsley out, actually, after it's kind of steeped. You're almost making like tea with it, if you think, where it's steeping in the butter. I do want to take a taste of this, but I want to make sure it's nice and mixed up first. The smell is incredible. Let me just smell it. Let me just take a quick taste. Okay. So I'm going to take the excess parsley out. Just going to put it over there. Just so I don't have, well, bits of parsley in the butter. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll want that. I don't know. Yeah, but then you might get like a big chunk of it. It might not be evenly distributed. So I'm just going to take the parsley out. It's done its job. The dill can stay in because there's no way for me to get that out. But like if I was just going to pour this over some pasta now or make a sauce out of it immediately, I'd probably leave the parsley in. But since I'm going to be putting it in the fridge to harden and just have like a secondary source of butter, like the regular butter and the brown butter, yeah, that's pretty much all of it. There might be a little stragglers in there, but that's okay. All right, so that is the brown butter tutorial. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's going to go in the bowl. It's going to go in the fridge. And by tomorrow or maybe even later today, we'll have nice brown butter. I'd show you the finished product because I normally have brown butter in the fridge to show you what the finished product looks like. But we used the rest of it last night. Or actually, it wasn't last night. It was the night before. Tommy Knocker's knocking on my door. No, we used it the night before for ravioli. So we had like these spinach cheese ravioli. Anyway, that's cooking with VMX brown butter tutorial. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it was instructive. See you soon.